When you think of the Victorian era, what comes to mind? Probably elegance, maybe a little stuffy, right? Well, today we're pulling back the curtain on the hidden engineering and secret systems that made it all work, starting with one very simple, very human problem. Okay, let's just put ourselves in this scene for a second. You're at some grand ball, the air is thick with perfume, chandeliers are glittering everywhere, and then it hits you. You have to go. Now! And here's the thing you have to understand. For a Victorian woman, that dress wasn't just clothing. It was a literal cage. Answering nature's call wasn't a quick trip to the loo. It was a major strategic operation, conducted from inside a fortress of fabric. So, how on earth did they manage? That's what we're going to break down. We'll start with that beautiful illusion they showed the world, then get into the nitty-gritty of how it was built, day after day. We'll uncover the secrets of the chamber pot, peek at some seriously scandalous and ingenious solutions, and finally talk about the incredible grace it took to pull it all off. All right, first up, the illusion. The Victorian age was all about appearances, about projecting this image of perfect, delicate femininity. But man, underneath that polished surface was a whole different story. I mean, just picture it. Every smile, every twirl on the dance floor, all of that is happening while you're basically navigating a complex set of physical traps. The gap between how things looked on the outside and what was really going on is just massive. So to really get a handle on the problem, you first have to understand the process. And let me tell you, getting dressed wasn't just, putting on clothes. It was a full-blown construction project every single morning. Okay, so it all started with a base layer, the linen chemise. Simple enough. But then, bam, the corset. This thing was designed to literally reshape your body. On top of that, you'd pile on layers and layers of petticoats for that big, full look. And the grand finale, the crinoline. We're talking a literal steel cage under your skirt to get that perfect bell shape. Yeah, you heard that right. We're talking up to 7 layers, sometimes even more. Can you imagine the weight, the heat, and just another wall between you and relief? It's just wild to think about wearing all that every single day. And this wasn't just about being uncomfortable. No. These corsets were often laced so tight that they could permanently change the shape of a woman's rib cage over time. Think about that. This wasn't just fashion anymore. This was a daily battle with your own body, all to fit some ideal look. So with all that, architecture strapped to your body, how did you handle the inevitable? The answer to that question was a household hero, often hiding in plain sight: the chamber pot. And this is just so perfectly Victorian, right? You can't just have a pot. No, that would be uncivilized. It has to be disguised. In the fancier homes, you'd find them tucked away inside these gorgeous wooden cabinets or even built into chairs. It's a personal toilet pretending to be elegant furniture. And get this, a whole secret language developed around it. A maid could tell just by looking at the lid if it needed emptying. A closed lid meant all clear, an open one meant in use. A little nod from her mistress, maybe a raised eyebrow was the signal. At parties, they had retiring rooms. These were the sanctuaries where women could go with their maids to actually navigate all that clothing in private. But the chamber pot is only half the story. The real genius, the truly mind-blowing part, is in the clothes themselves. They figured out a way to make the problem part of the solution. Which brings us back to the big question, right? With a steel cage and all those layers, how? How did they actually do it? It seems impossible. Well, the answer is so simple, it's brilliant. And for the time, a little scandalous. They were called split drawers. See, for a long time, women's underwear wasn't connected. It was basically 2 separate pant legs joined up at the waist, leaving the middle wide open. This was the game changer. It meant they could use a chamber pot without having to dismantle the entire outfit. Pure engineering born out of pure necessity. And that cleverness was everywhere. Toilet paper? Nope. Think old newspapers or even reusable cloths. Menstruation? They made their own pads out of things like absorbent moss or wool. And laundry? The great wash for outer clothes might happen just twice a year. And in the cities, you had to keep your ears open. Someone yelling, "God hello, watch out for the water," was your only warning before, came flying out a window from above. A practice that led to some really awful diseases like cholera. And here is a fact that just blows my mind. Your waste could literally fuel a war. Before we had modern chemicals, urine was super valuable. It was collected for its nitrates, which were a key ingredient in making gunpowder. So yeah, the most private thing you could do had very, very public and even military implications. Wild. So when you hear all this, it's easy to laugh or think it's all just absurd. But if you do that, you're kind of missing the bigger picture. What we're actually looking at here is an incredible story of human ingenuity and survival. See, this is the thing. We think of Victorian women as these delicate, fragile flowers who fainted all the time, but that's just not the whole truth. To survive in that world, to manage all of this every single day, that took incredible strength, planning, and smarts. They weren't just wearing clothes, they were engineers of their own elegance. They took what was a massive inconvenience and turned it into an art form. They took necessity and turned it into innovation. They were living inside this gilded cage, but they found a way. They adapted, silently and cleverly, and figured out how to make it all work. It really makes you think, doesn't it? There's this whole other world, this whole complex system of survival that was happening just beneath the surface of the history we all learn in school. And it just begs the question, what other incredible secrets are hiding in the parts of the past we never even think to look at?